who I'm going to be riding out with today. So it is Friday again. This is Tribe Vibes. Get your Palo Santo and your sage together. Like it's funny because I feel energy collectively. So I even feel like there's this, pullback sometimes. It's like all right, let me, I think this is normal. I think I get it. And then there's this like, all right, none of this is right. I don't get it at all. Help me. And I can definitely see that in the questions. And it's interesting, though, because, today is definitely a very mature conversation. It's just what the co-creative has ordered. And so I'm going to take a minute to get some water here and to get myself together. I suggest that you do the same. Again, Palo Santo Sage is Tribe Vibes. It's Friday. We're going all the way in, and we're even going to make it back out. It's a wonderful time to be connecting. We always know the most special thing that we have here is each other. Palo Santo and Sage to the death. Yeah, I feel like the Catholic Church over here, they got so much problems. They be just saging everything down, throwing smoke all over the place. It's like, if smoke can make you holy, they like holy because of the smoke. They burning big trees over there. So, I definitely had to come in a little bit earlier in the studio today. The wild part was I set up an entirely different view, and it didn't work. It just wouldn't technically work because I was in the other room. And so that was kind of interesting because that burned off about 3 hours. So I'm still trying to get that 3 hours back. So I'm going to need to jump in the time machine today with you and really get you up to speed. I mean, that's really what you have me here for, is that we have the opportunity to connect. And because I'm out here in the jungle, I have no other opportunity but to connect. I am a very sociable person, or at least I used to be. Meaning I would want to be out there. I do even go to the mall. I was like 7 in the mall. I really like being out in the festivities, but, the universe is like, no, Mr. Libra Scorpio, you need to sit down for a moment and tap into the savant because we got some work for you to do before you glide up on through this dimension. And so today's build together is really about afterlife and really just, it's 2020 and we're in November. We have basically 1 month left. So I'm sure the ancestors are like, okay, let's keep rolling with this. Let's go into the next thing. So the transmissions have been strong. So much to the point I even get somewhat of what appears to be like a headache. Like it's, especially during these lunar builds, I even went and Googled that. I was like, headache, full moon, is that happening with anyone? So I'm drinking a lot of water and I'm doing all that. So, everybody's got their recommendations. Like, as you're doing, it's because you. And I'm like, look, I just got a headache during a full moon. I know you got a million reasons why, but, I need to get a magnesium bath or something. So I find myself during these times really needing to double dose on the anti-inflammation, everything. It's like my brain gets big. And of course, well, even everything inside of there and your spine and all your fluids and all that stuff, because your water, it expands. But I don't know how much room I have left, to be honest. Meaning that I think if they say that this is a brain and it's filling up with information and experience, my stuff must be full. So when I'm getting this little full moon expansion, I feel like I almost get to a point where the pressure is really high. And so in that, it always brings me and centers me into the space about, so if you had to finalize things, what would you really say? And everyone knows that what I generally do is I come in here every time looking to give you everything that you need. So you're not really waiting on the next recording. The disclaimer today, though, is this is a collective build. So it's a progressive build. So if you're just jumping in today, glorious. You may need to just treat it like sci-fi, though, if you haven't gone through the university materials and really armored yourself properly. It's something like this is why we're going to be working more on just the orientation process of new ambassadors that are coming in so they understand things like going through the karma codes, right? Like, cause I'm just blowing through. It's like, I almost forgot about karma codes. As far as like that, I did that, we went in, but the show must go on. There must be something new. So karma codes for me, is a big key to this level of consciousness, because you're being enamored. Notice this word, enamor, armor, all those words are really coming from the same thing. It basically means like a coating that you're putting over yourself, so that the sensitive aspects of what you are don't get directly impacted by what you're going to go through in the experience. So let's just see it this way, that we got this skin, right? And also the planet has a crust. See, I've been really just digging into the planet, literally, especially after I went to the volcano, and I found myself extremely charged every night in my dreams. Everything was going up. I even arrested the police. I arrested the police in a dream. I was reading them all the laws that they had broken and everything, and they were scared. I mean, I had a succession of 3 dreams. Another one, it was a shroud or something, and it dropped from the sky, and it was like, this is one of the alien husks, and there was like a black man and a white man that went and fetched it for me like they were angels. So that was the second dream, and I had to ask Jeanette about the third dream because I damn near already forgot, but it was wild, and there was I wasn't necessarily on my diet because we were at like a hotel, so they had some stuff I could survive, but it wasn't like all the organics. Right. And, I'm not sure how the bed was orientated, north, east, south, west. Somebody definitely had slept in it before. So it wasn't that the space was just super sanctified and purified. But one thing that I can't account for what was going on under the ground is the whole thing had to be fire all underground. There's no way that amount of hot water, I'm talking about a river of hot water, Arenal River, which it's a river of hot water. So like, even when I saw the owners of the place and things, and, they were gropping up, they've been gropping up for 30 years. They're actually one of the richest families in Costa Rica. I realized that, that was just like common sense. If you built your business on top of a hot flow of water and somehow figured out a way to even monetize off of it, you was always going to be paid because you're just sitting on power and energy, right? So anyway, that power and energy was there. And in that experience, I got a chance to continuously level up. So I was definitely what I call funning, which some people call working. So I was doing something and I was engaged, but I also had the opportunity to really, really connect into a force that was so massive. It was just inexhaustible. Imagine yourself trying to harness all the energy of a volcano. It ain't gonna happen. So there was enough excess energy rolling around just in the soil, in the dirt, that was enough to keep the body charged. And this becomes, just so imperative to how we're going to have to keep creating our co-creation to get us into these spaces if we're not there already. Remember, even some of the most fortunate people are not on lands that are really accepting them. And what I mean by that is that when you go out somewhere and if you see a lot of things growing and you pull up the dirt, just do a quick dirt sample to really realize how much power you're working with. We talked about this before, but look at the dirt and see what level of what we got going on here. Do we got a lot of mycelium network? Do we have a lot of fertility? Is this dirt like that dark brown, or do we have something else going on in the other direction where all this is crystalline and this even looks like, little pieces of quartz and stuff in the dirt? And then, of course, observe the trees and things that are growing around in this environment and just really feel into it. And I'm just getting back into, again, where we started off in our last build on Last Try Vibes about making sure that you find your place that you can charge. And I trust that everyone that was a part of that was able to start their process that's going to come up here to November 30th, which is getting your mind really in tune with what you want. That's all you have to do right now. Like, you may not see yourself in it. And I'm explaining to you today how you would not really see this, how things really happen. You're not going to visually see any of this stuff. And I'm explaining that in detail today, but it's really to let you know that stop thinking about how you're going to get to where you want to go and start focusing more on where you want to go. Because here's what's interesting. I had a great build with my brother Timothy, and he sent me some stuff on leadership. And I read over the stuff, and I found that it was a bit outdated. There were principles to it, but there were a lot of things that were outdated in relation to how things even work in the world today, with how people feel about leaders, and even whether they feel like they're leaders versus that they need someone to actually lead them. But I found one of the most important things is that just like when here's what was interesting. I had an entire experience. When I went to Chiripo and I hiked Chiripo, I knew I was going up to Chiripo. So I asked for a guide, or we asked for a guide to take us to Chiripo. So notice now, I didn't just show up to a guide and say, take me. Because take you where? They're just going to take you where basically they want to go. And I feel like that's also what happens when people get this idea that leaders are supposed to also know where they want to go. You understand what I'm saying to you right now? There's a small gap here. People are looking for leadership and they're looking for mentorship, but they don't know necessarily where they want to go. They just look at this other person and they say, I want to go where they've gone. This is not how it's done. You find something where you really want to be, what you really want to do, something that you really want to achieve. And then you find the guy that has already gone there and can really give you some specifics about how to get to that space. Okay, so now that's very clear. And as I said, this is a disclaimer today about this being a progressive build. So you would need to get some footing underneath you, get some ground underneath you, get some previous university materials in the ends of any of those sections into your system if you have not already. Then this will all click, because today we're talking macro right now today, big picture stuff, not the micro, not the how am I getting my bookshelf together and what book should I buy? Like, this is the big deal because it's November and, we got to keep delivering. And that's what we do. So before we also get into the delivery, because indeed we're going to birth something today in this co-creative room, I'll take a moment in time and in space and in infinity to touch and agree. Now, if you've just come in here and this is going to look strange to you, however, this is the symbol of everlasting life. It's a bearing of witnesses showing up of all forms, including the angelics, the demonics, the platonics, all of the Euclideans and all the rest of the vibrations and frequencies and lights, just saying, yeah, it's infinite. We're literally proof that infinity does exist. And I'm so glad you can't figure it out with your limited mind, because then it would be over with. That our being here is proof that something comes from nothing. And with that being said, that means that time does not actually exist. And this will go on what we know as infinitely. So since that's the case, we take these moments to open up this portal of full spectrum, everything that you prefer. And we can do this in an inexhaustible way because we have a total spectrum here. If you look at the screen, there's some folks from different parts of the world, some folks that you've been wanting to hang out with. You was like, are they conscious? What's going on here? All of the whole part of the spectrum is here. And this is great because this means that, hey, there's no limitations. So because of that, we allow this space to be open, and there are many others. We have not ever failed to mention them, that if at any point you feel like you need the love, the compassion, the honor, the glory, all of the stuff that you prefer inexhaustibly, you can get it from here. Now, I think these are going to be more important later when you cross over in the club afterlife. However, they are accessible now just in case you start getting emoed out. Because it can happen, meaning that all this stuff that's going on can really be a bit like, it happens to me. It's nothing even abnormal about it, meaning that if you're not even responding at all to the pressures of what's going on in the crucible these days, shoot, maybe you need to check your pulse, because reality here is that empathy is like one of the first senses that reactivate. Some people never deactivated from empathy, but some people have. And so what happens is that if you could feel what it feels like for people to even be confused, for people to lose, all that kind of stuff. When you feel that, you take on that feeling. So if you notice in movies and stuff, when they're using this power of empathy, they always turn it off at a certain point, though. They don't just be rolling around the whole movie like, I'm feeling everything that I'm feeling from somebody else, meaning that when you have the power of empathy, you do have to realize when to turn it on and when to turn it off in order to have those moments of just expansion. You know, like that what we call the constant. It's in math or there's a constant, which is like the base. It's the baseline. It's basically what they call here sea level. It's a constant that is redundant throughout the entire planet, and it's like the baseline. And that's also the Schumann resonance, 7.83 hertz, like the baseline constant of where everybody could actually find ground. And that's really even what 7.83 hertz is projecting out, is just ground. Like, okay, so let me land somewhere, because what we're really dealing with this space moving so fast and the laws of light, we could literally be like, you would keep falling, but you would never hit the ground because there would be no ground. So that's what the constant is it's ground. And when you hit the ground, it's like, boom. And then you start the process of planting and layering the seed. So I was going to go into a 4-minute meditation, but it's not going to happen. So just take yourself some breaths, because once the train's moving, I can't stop the train for you. Even today, I was like, I said and articulated this whole going into the subconscious mind and realizing the process after death so proficiently about 5 days ago, and I did not record it. And so I'm like, man, you're going to have to come back in on that again. And so my last 5 days is been like working to go back into my conscious, like, what did you say? Have you ever been laying in like that moment when you're about to go to sleep, you're about to go into a dream, and then you seem to be starting to talk to somebody and communicate something, and then you go like, like some weird, like, and you'll come right back to consciousness again because you won't fall asleep, but you'll be like, what? Wait, what? Like something had just happened. And I have no clue what it was, but I was there clear. Okay. This is now what we'll just term as the parallel. I want you to write this down, because what's going to happen here is I'm going to show you, I'm going to break apart these worlds real quick, and I'm going to put them back together, and it's all going to make perfect sense for you. There's going to be not like anything like, boy, what happens with, and I don't believe in, kind of, there's going to be none of that going on, because it's truth. And truth is like the Thor's hammer of the whole thing. It's like, it's also a constant in itself. Truth is the constant. It's like, well, yeah, you could play around in your dream world and in your hypotheticals and your different varieties of the reality, but there's got to be something stable that you come into in order to begin to get yourself together. I feel like that this I'm calling this is what I call the dragon. Okay. This is the term, the dragon, which I found was very close to the word drug when I was doing a lot of etymology. And I looked deep into why drug and dragon were basically the same word. And even they talk about sometimes, you're riding the dragon when you're taking certain substances. And I'm going to show how all this correlates with exactly what we're doing in our subconscious mind to actually be able to cope with infinity. Okay? So I'm going to slow this down also a little bit, because I literally have to drive through like I'm in a Cadillac, the highest levels of consciousness in a way where I'm not here to entertain you. I'm not here to make you laugh, even though we will crack up sometimes. Sometimes I cry, we cry together. But I'm actually here just to make sure you understand this, because once your subconscious mind gets it, it's going to be like that conversation that you don't know is happening right before you kind of wake back up again. Something is going to be applied, but it's not going to be for the mind to try to figure out what was applied. Because I'm going to show you also that every time the mind tries to do that, it screws up stuff. It really is what's getting in the way. And true power is learning how to turn that off. And we talked about that between the left and the right brain. We did a whole deep dive, showed the CIA documents that prove when one part of the mind is not giving instructions and you just turn it off and you start talking directly to the other part of the mind that's responsible for executing those instructions, it does it. I'm as strong as an ox. It'll go out and flip over a car. And this is the danger for them, they, if you may, meaning that the opportunist, you in that kind of state, realizing the power of your dream, realizing the power of even what you would say is mesmerizing or hypnotizing yourself to accomplish feats that would be what people would see as impossible. This is the danger zone for they, because there's an inability to be able to control that kind of being. And this construct that we're in is a very controlled construct. It amounts for why it's even here, why it's like the way that it is, why you see so many different things going on that just should not be going on. That all has to do a lot with the control. But as another thing we were mentioning is there's two types of control. In a paradox, there seems to be at least two types of everything. There's two types of control. One control is the beings that think they're in control. This is like a judge. Like a judge gets on there and they start ordering everybody and telling everybody what to do and what time you're going to get and what's going to happen. This is a judge. This is in control. However, then there's the being that has control over themselves. And that's the sovereign, because none of that stuff that they're talking about even applies. They haven't even accepted that this person can have any power over them. And so the buck literally stops there. It's like, oh, no, you don't tell me what to do. And this is where also you must reach in your consciousness then. The judge in your consciousness, the one that thinks it has control, you need to go on to sovereign law over that judge and be like, you don't tell me what to do. I'm sad today, but you don't tell me what to do, though. You need to sit down, though. Like, you don't have no control, though. I told you this is going to last forever. So with you whining forever in this ship, I'm going to be listening to you whining all day. This is how you got to talk to your mom. I'm going to be listening to you whining for infinity. Get a grip, realize what's happening, wake up. Don't think, oh, this is just like the mind always is trying to compare things to other things. This is just like what blah, blah, blah talks about. First of all, we're in a unique space and time. What we're dealing with right now will never be like what anything else is like after this. Okay, so give yourself the opportunity to dial in right into this space, not yesterday, not 3 even minutes ago, right now, and stay on that tip. Because what you'll see is that light moves at light speed. Thought and thinking actually moves at the rate of the person's consciousness. So if the person's consciousness is not moving at least at the speed of light, everything is already going on and they never even saw it. This is really a deep thing about the big stuff is going on so fast, you're not seeing it. This is why in DMT, what DMT does and many other substances do is they take you into this frequency that starts feeling really strange. You get scared. It starts feeling real, too real. Okay. And what's literally happening is that the layers of perceptions are melting away, which I'm going to explain where those come from. The layers of perceptions are melting away. And now you're just experiencing full-blown you. The mind is wrestling with this, trying to break all this down. And the best it can do is start showing a lot of colors. Anybody who's ever been on a journey will notice this. It's all of a sudden, it's all these colors. And this is because now you've reached the threshold of this processor. It's like, I don't know what to tell you, Doc. Kaleidoscope. We're going into something that I can't even perceive. All I can give you is colors. And then feeling tries to say, hey, pay attention to me more, because perception is he's not going to be able to ride past where you want to go. So that was like a prelude to what we're about to go through right now. That's like the trailer for this. So check this out. So first and foremost, let us take a moment to be grateful, because at least we're getting the knowledge right now. The reason is because I I just don't think that in 10 years, in 15 years, this is the kind of thing we'll be hearing anymore. I think that something else will become more prevalent. Like maybe the AI mumbo jumbo and how, of course, because computers and all that is based on spirituality, how they start getting more into a techno spiritual language. But it ceases to give us the essence of the ability to really traverse time. See, because we've learned so much in this experience. Like we've learned about these prototypical ancient cultures. We've seen all sorts of different gamuts of spiritual activities and dancing and shamans and medicines. And so we've got into all of this, but this is not always going to be this way and was not always this way. So the first thing is to realize that ages change, wisdom changes, knowledge changes, and skill changes, and things are going to change. And having this type of aspect of awareness, it's a really beautiful thing. Because when they try to, because we're making quantum leaps, when they try to pair what we're going to go into to what we've been through already, it's going to have less and less of a connection after a while, because it's going to seem so technological and futuristic and digital. People are going to think that they had made it beyond. It's even going to get to a point where there's no more wars and all that kind of stuff. People are going to think they actually made it beyond what was achieved in history. But the thing is that they never actually knew any real history. They would be basing that assumption off of that 72 maximum years that they've also been here, and there will be very little of what actually happened still available. Like even right now, if you don't think that this is true, even right now, there's very little of what was going on. Like I was even looking today, and also there's some announcements here that some folks are trying to get in the room. So moderators, if you can stay on that. I was looking today just at Ethiopia. And if you Wikipedia Ethiopia people and you look at how many tribes, there's about, I don't know, give or take about 10 tribes that they have designated now. And then you click on those tribes and you just go to Google and you say, Eritrean people. There were some of the tribes like Hadaya people, right? And you look at these people. Each tribe you go to, you see a different subset, a totally different culture. You even see some of the paintings on the walls in Kemet, like some of the people that were there. You see all of this that nobody really knows about, right? You got lands over there that, there's like one tribe that makes up only 1.5% of the Ethiopian people, right? So I checked them out first, and they live in this area that has never... It's grassy and the trees are beautiful. And I'm sure if there was a God, they've met God there. But see, because our agenda generally in this society is not to go and find, like I was saying before, like I went to the volcano, or I went to Tripoli, so I knew where I was going. So sometimes, like, let me give you another example. I went to Google Earth and I started looking at where this whole chain of volcanoes was. And I found and I found the volcanoes, especially here, were in a direct straight line. And I'm like, looking at this, and see, this is valuable to me because now I can see where that line even stretches all the way to where I'm at now, and where that line continues over that mountain over there, right? So it's basically like there's knowledge and wisdom that is very valuable for us, but that's not the knowledge and wisdom that we're readily looking for due to the programming and the poisonings and the reality. So then we will think that we know about that. Oh yeah, I'm sure Ethiopia is a very poor place. They because the pictures we've seen, right? When really they have areas all over there that you can still drop down on a plane, catch a bus, drive right over there, and just ask somebody, hey, so what really happened here? What I'm getting at is that ages are moving so fast that we have parallel worlds existing on this planet right now. Beings that have experienced a totally different level of contact and communication with this space, but not really necessarily being aware of each other or even wanting to be aware of each other. So give me one quick second here. I'm going to tilt my camera down. I told you it's a Cadillac, so I got to ride out. I noticed when I was slumping a little bit, it looked like my head was gone. But anyway, this may be one of the greatest recordings ever. I want to make sure it's not done with me just being the head down here like. So ages are changing, things are moving, but you got parallels going on, and then you have a consensus, meaning the consensus says, no, actually everything that you need that is going on that's really amazing, you already know. There's nothing new in the world. There's no ancient knowledge and mysteries and secrets here. There's no stones that can talk and people who've already touched divinity within themselves. There's none of that. There's just what you see on Netflix and just what you see, what we let you see. And that's control. So what we're doing now is we're stepping outside of that control, that box. So that way we can really get to working on our subconscious, because what we're talking about is macro, big picture stuff, which will prepare us for our own end game, which is but the beginning. It gets us beyond that process of us thinking, so what's ultimately going to happen here? You move from that to you cross over the what's ultimately going to happen here, and you start to play around in that vista. That's what the goal here is today. So also, here's the interesting thing. The controller that we're dealing with right now is so selfish and diabolically distorted. It would never allow much of anything that had real power to it to be published, like to put it in like a book, right? And then now everybody's buying it on Amazon. I'm not saying there's not some jewels and gems out there that you can't distill and synthesize into something amazing. I'm just saying most books on magic specifically are about magic that does not work here in this world. I got an opportunity to fly into some other spaces, sit into some councils. And it was interesting because what was just being transmitted is how, and it was just being showed to me. It was already explained, but I needed an explanation. And it was like, how could magic not work anymore? Because there were certain magic, if you may, that our ancestors used. And you see that magic very ineffective right now. I mean, there's a trickle. But as a most part, it's ineffective because we actually see a lot of our indigenous tribes. We see a lot of people who work with that system just not being able to withstand the next bulldozer that's coming through the neighborhood. And this is the sign of when the time has changed. And now the old magic is obsolete. So they will sell that stuff. They'll give you all these books about here's these names and here's these deities and here's all this stuff. And they know that stuff doesn't even work here. Now, it works on a parallel. This is why it is still useful. Because if you can get to that parallel, like Kemet is still popping right now. The pyramid, everything is green. The pyramids were volcanoes. That's what fire inside really means. They just sit there and shave the whole damn thing down. This is really madness of what you see going on right now. They didn't turn the whole place into a tourist trap. But there is a space and a time and a parallel where it's popping. It's at its climax. It's at its total vibratory spectrum. And when you get into that space, all of the knowledge of Kim and Ma'at applies there. It's like what everybody's using. It's like the iOS and Android of that world. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you come into this space and time knowing you're using that, trying to use that dialect, that code, that program, people are going to look. It's not going to work. Why? Because it'll work a little bit because there's always a stream. But it's not going to be major because it's not what is in the systems that directly make it happen. What makes it happen is this consciousness. All of the people here on the planet, all of their consciousness is what's making the magic happen. Okay. So if you don't speak the code and the skill of this particular mainframe, this particular space and time, you're using a system that is basically it's not going to allow you to build completely in the construct. You're like using a code that doesn't necessarily apply into the new structure. And so what this is like is that, so back in the day on the other parallel, things were basically analog. So this means that there was a lot of physical to what needed to be done. Like this idea of drawing circles and doing and calling and evoking something, right? And then lighting up a bunch of stuff, lighting up a bunch of smoke and ashes, and then even put on some animals as a burnt offering. And there's a lot of physical happening. This age already switched and went into the mind, where every single element that is being brought forth in that version, I can bring forth in my mind. I don't actually need to bring the physical objects. The mind, which everything is growing. So it goes from, like, let's say this baby child stage, and it grows, and we've been growing for billions, a countless amount of time we've been growing. So now our consciousness or our construct is so powerful, it no longer needs the actual physical things to create the magic, but they give you books with a bunch of physical things in them. Without the awareness that what this really is now, because every previous age serves to be the manual for the new. What this really is like a hypothetical, even it's a literal explanation of what needs to be done inside of the construct of the next age. And since we're inside of something, we're talking about inside of the mind. So the actual physical applications that were taking place in previous times becomes the mental application that is now taking place in the next time. This is because all of this is you're enveloping. You're enveloped in your own consciousness. Your subconscious mind is the womb. So it's just enveloping. So the next thing that you're going to do is based on the previous thing that you learned, but you're not going to be able to do that one external. So this is why we have an issue with the spiritual force right now, because most people that are practicing that are still, let's say, harmonic and balanced, they're practicing with the physical. While those who, like you see, like I told you, Weird Club Orion, like all those guys, they're all working with the mental now, right? They get these pyramids and stuff, all that stuff out there. They're into the psychomancy, the chaos magic, radionics. So they're dealing with frequency things that you can no longer see, because that's the new system, right? So I just wanted you to be aware that as things shift, you have to realize where that shift took place. It doesn't mean that you have to shift with it, but it does mean that you need to create an environment that resonates towards whatever program and codes that you're actually using. And you need to work to remove yourself from that space, if you may, that is not in that level of harmonic code. This is the same thing as like getting out of the city and going to nature. If you're just more of a nature person, because it's like you're going to be better off there rather than sitting right in the middle of Times Square. So I'm not talking about something that is so foreign here, but we also got to, take the bigger picture of all this and see what is this stuff already, because we had it down to symbols. Your entire life and your existence was encoded in one symbol. They wasn't trying to write you a 500-600 page book. There was one symbol that all of human existence was encoded in most ancient tongues and ancient languages, ancient structures, societies, and systems. So instead of saying, what is that symbol? Because I know the mind just did that, right? So what is that symbol, right? What we're saying is it's like an awareness that becomes like a code and program. There was one symbol. You don't need to see the symbol. You see or feel the awareness. So that's how you check back, because many people are going to try to figure out how to do and achieve what I'm talking about tonight in the mind. And what I'm telling you today is that you need to move faster than light now. Faster than the speed of light. One click ahead, so that you can catch every time the mind does all the stuff that has you here right now. So let's keep it going. I mean, it has you in a certain mindset
sometimes not recognizing completely how much power you have. And then others around you confirming this in a point-to-point system where no one really gets to the next stage because everyone is confirming this current state of being. So, in game, right, which is but the beginning. So we already clarified that you thought it and it came to be. For you newcomers, we love you. We give thanks. We know you're going to be amazing ambassadors. But one of the maxims here is that everything you're looking at you was a thought. Everything around you that you're looking at was a thought first. Okay? That just as basis, or I like to say basis because they love to hit you with this metaphysical. Yes, it was a thought first. But I'm saying even the chair you're sitting on, the refrigerator behind you, somebody was like, yo, I'm going to go and I'm going to put this metal. I'm going to have a business and I'm going to get all these chairs and I'm going to get the aluminum from over here. Oh, we're going to make this electronic. Oh, my goodness, I got this idea for this compressor. And so those are all ideas first. Okay? Then we eventually saw the physical one. So these are maxims. If you cannot come into that awareness, then you'll be lost out here because you just keep getting hit. Oh, where did that come from? You'll keep figuring out. You'll keep feeling like you're always learning or figuring out something because it just keeps coming out of nowhere and bam, it just keeps hitting you. So you have to realize that there is an invisible space, if you may, that you can sense. And because of the speed of that, it moves faster than this space. It's a speed thing. And so the reason why this becomes very important, because this is the maxim that we have to stand on right now. If we go off into this journey we're going to go on right now, and we're not standing on anything, we're going to get lost. So just remember, the maxim that we're standing on is that everything here started with a thought first. Now, bringing it a little bit more personal, your parents, they were thinking. They had some thoughts. A certain type of thought, too. Notice that, we always went, well, my dad really didn't love my mom. We go into the bag. And I'm going to show you where the bag really exists in the subconscious mind. But I'm just saying in general, on standard, somebody generally was trying to get their gratification in their fix, their drug. Okay, that drug of even connection. I want to have sex, and it's a drug. Now, let me explain this. Okay, let me bring this back around. Okay, so because my notes are in one order, but I realize that we got to navigate this through the direction of how the conscious moves. Now, imagine then that the subconscious mind is what is moving first. It's the one that is conceiving things, right? Actually, I'm gonna stay on my notes. My notes say, so the subconscious is eternal. When all of the lights go off, one light stays on. I'll say it again. Your subconscious mind, the thing you're using to talk to yourself, it's eternal. So even though, because of one of the poison hacks, which is this idea of death, that the physical body can die. It's called a poison hack, but I'll explain it later. Because of this hack where people feel like, okay, I got to get older, so I'm getting older. Everybody around me is getting older. This is a point-to-point check system. So we all get old. So in this, though, when the get old and the expiration process happens, that is also a concoction. The subconscious mind stays on, though. And I told you that I have physical experiences of this, and many others do. So this is not, we have not drawn from the cabinet of the unknown. When death seems to happen, things don't stop. And what you start doing is talking to yourself again. It's like, shit, I just died. That's like what you say first. This is an odd moment. Because then obviously you know what you say next. So how am I still talking to myself? Oh, shit now. Because if you're doing this in English, it's already giving you the codes to where you're going to be going back to. This is how powerful codes are. It's like if you're talking to your mind subconsciously in English, Now, I'm going to tell you how to release all of this here in a moment. So don't be like, how do I stop myself from talking to English? But let's just realize the mechanics of what we're discussing here. The subconscious mind is eternal. So you don't need to explain to the subconscious mind how to get back into the world. It already has an example. So it says, I need to become a baby again. This is another hack. Meaning that when you're standing out there floating in nothingness and, you know, the consciousness, subconsciousness is getting a little uncomfortable about this experience of being dead, but not really being dead, something kicks on. Intuition, what you would call it. It kicks on. And it says, well, I know how to get back into a world. I got an idea. I know how to get back into the world. How? We need to become a baby again. Okay, so that's enough to reboot the process. I'm going to take you before all of that happens and through this. But I want you to understand that that is the thought that gets you back into the mix. That is how you see everything around you was a thought first. That is the thought that gets you in here. It's just that you think you need to come here as a baby versus they don't. They didn't load that hack, that code, that program. They don't believe that they need to come in as babies. See, when you're not knowing anything and all of what we accept and what we think we're seeing with babies. And this is where things get a little sticky, literally. Because every time a person is perceiving something, they're coming to a conclusion about it and then accepting that as their truth before it gets broken again. That's even what a wake-up call in life is. What activation is that this previous truth you had now is not the truth anymore. So it's just basically destroying your entire foundation of what you thought was true. And then a new one is being built. So for this child, what is happening is that there's already a point-to-point connection happening in the framework that is saying, you don't know what you're even doing. You don't know what you're here for. I need to take care of you. These are all hacks. Okay? This is all that was necessary for something to come in and start controlling the construct. So let's keep going here. So we have just awareness that collectively, okay, here's another thing, because, sometimes, we struggle with the one about when bad things happen. How could I manifest a reality where bad stuff happens to me? Well, first of all, good things happen to you too. It's not all like the news, right, where everything's all bad. There's good things that happen to you too. But we do want to point out the bad things, right? So first of all, this is a dual realm. It works on polarities. We talked about pain and payment. But a deeper one of realizing this is that, well, technically, because this is a co-creation, you're borrowing codes from who's like your direct, you're the benefactor of. You get in your allotment, in your inheritance, the code as far as your parents have worked it. This is why it's good to accelerate your consciousness, because you would pass that code onto your ilk. So what happens is that now this code is being passed. Give me 1 second. So when the code is passed, the code contains all of these different experiences that everyone that has held the DNA has actually gone through. This is already an entanglement. We just have to be willing to accept that there's so much corrupt code. Things that have happened. Somebody stole something, now the arm got chopped off. Somebody just jumped off a cliff. It was somebody neglected the baby, and the baby fell into a lot with wolves. Like anything you can think of in the infinite existence that would occur is inside of the DNA. So what would happen then is that once that DNA, which is called Noon, once Noon is reanimating you, which is basically like Noon is ambrosia. Noon is the darkest part of the menstrual fluid. Like when the actual seed germ of what you are coalesces into a fluid, it's called Nun, the water of chaos. It basically is the point, the fluid that sparks off your next level of existence. What you congeal into when you start having thoughts and working with DNA, and then you're now about to do your manifestation thing where you're going to come back in as a baby. You make yourself into Nun, which is water of chaos, and you plant yourself into a womb, a literal garden where you can come forth again. Okay? This is why the ancient knowledge reads like this, because it's just explaining the process of how the subconscious mind gets itself back into a world. And that's deep, right? So what we're saying, though, is that when it's reanimating inside of this dinonucleus, there is still this codes and experiences that have been already going on. And so as the person starts growing, all of that is going to reflect through their everything, their parents and everything. So bad stuff is going to happen because it's already in the dinonucleate code. So are we all there about how it's not necessarily that we wanted to just have a bad time, but a bad time is encoded also inside of this DNA based on the experiences that others have had that are using it? Okay, so I just want to make sure that we're clear because we're sailing off here. So now we can see then how these circumstances that we're getting into, including the bad ones, are also in the code. Wow, we're already going there. Okay, so this says how to get into an expansive existence versus the one you have been trained in is the key. Yeah, of course that's the key. You know, trying to break that down early. So listen to this. So what happens then is that you're watching. So you're seeing this all take place now. Like you're kind of in this construct right now. You're seeing how the subconscious mind is reanimating itself back into the reality and it's doing this over and over and over again. And also it's not going to stop. This is not going to end. This is why they call it sometimes, as I said, cycle. Okay? So what happens is that religion was like the drug for the subconscious mind. Basically, when we started trying to figure out solutions for this, because when somebody's got dirty dinonucleics, especially if you kill somebody, the worst thing that you can do inside of this construct thing is to actually kill somebody because you create an entanglement. When the person gets killed by you, this is like their last thought. Also, this is a heavy thought for you. And what that does is it keeps basically making the two sparks meet somehow again on the dimension. This is what they call a nemesis. It's like some people can be responsible for ruining other people's lives. Some nations could even be responsible for ruining other nations' lives. So then what happens is that the last thought is that. And it makes it have to. So this is how in infinite space, this is your explanation to how the hell in infinite space do we keep arriving back around each other again? Now, I'm not going to say it's only killing because also love does that too. Love will bring you from quadrillion quantum miles of parallel light years away on the same block. Wow, how are we doing this? How are we sitting in such an infinite space? I can even measure you the depth of the ocean for those that don't believe there's a space out there. The depth of the ocean and even the vastness of this chasm is huge. So how are we together? How are you meeting people that you feel like that you've had connections with before? And it's because it's an entanglement. So the consciousness that we're speaking of now, the inheritant consciousness, is actually outside of the entanglement. The entanglement is light. When you see light and it's all congealing together and beaming and now cross-sectioning horizontal and vertically, and then now it's making what we call dense matter. Light is slowing down in a corner called an oob, and then it starts forming something, and that's all of these particles that are around us that have now become solid. There is a space before that even occurs, and that's the space that you have access to. This is basic choosing not to dive in. The real explanation of what they mean by, hey, chill out, don't go into the light. It's not like you're going to try to figure out, because I'm seeing the light, I guess I shouldn't go that way. This is not what we're talking about, but that's how they explain it. It's really more of to realize that light is moving so fast, and thought is also moving fast, that this is going on so fast, you're not even realizing how you're directly responsible for you never getting anywhere. That what happens is we keep confirming, and I'm going to show you this. This got really deep. Like, as I said, this is macro, so definitely make sure you get something else under your feet before you come into this. But think about this, or actually know about this. So what I started watching is, as I was watching the subconscious mind and the subconscious entanglement amongst these children on the planet, I realized that it starts a lot with even what we think is unique about us. Uniqueness also is a code. It doesn't have to be what we think is the same within everyone, but it is the same ideal, something that is different. So then when you watch people, what they do is they find what is most rare about themselves. Again, I'm not saying this is bad or good. I'm just showing you how the construct works. They find what's different about themselves. Now I'm going to show you. Somebody may say, shoot, I pick up 300 bags of trash every single day as a trash man. Nobody does. I mean, few of us will do that. Somebody may say, I dive deep. I've been doing scuba diving. I go 60, 70 miles down. Not too many people do that. They're afraid. I give spiritual knowledge and I'm pretty advanced. I know a lot more than most people know about spiritual knowledge. Few people are like that. I'm showing you something here. Everyone has it. I know how to play video games really, really well. I've ate more cheeseburgers than anybody. I drive these cars fast. I cook. Nobody's throwing down like me. So what this is behind the scenes, though, like when you look at this as code, it is all really the same thing. It's just like one of the same code. It's the same code because the actual action that it creates within every being is the same. A feeling of being different. Now, once this seeps into the coding system, though, what it does is it becomes a point-to-point confirmation of contrast. Now, again, I'm not telling you this is good or bad. I'm just telling you when you want to disengage, behold, I saw the ladder going up and down. When you just want to unplug, when you want to get out of the entanglement, this is the thing that you're going at. This is the release valve because you literally start seeing that, man, you're doing this. It's all the same thing. Like you're just jumping back in so fast. You want to tell yourself how right away, this is not you. That's not true. You're really this. And what that's doing is it's sending out this frequency to everybody else saying, and that person who I recognize, and I recognize them through contrast. She's doesn't look like me, or she is a female. I am a male, and I like drinking lots of water. I drink way more water than anybody else. You see what I mean? So this is what we need to see. Masters, beyond masters, see these things. They recognize how fast this is moving, these thoughts and these ideals, and how it's now gone so fast, we think that this is what we are. It's great to use this being that we're in and have it like a perfect fit. Like I said, the glove of God. It's like this human body that we have is the glove of our higher self, if you may. This is the extension of us. But boy, do not forget that it is just an extension, because what's going to happen is already there is corruption in the code. The code says that it dies. this is set up to where it does whatever you tell it to do. So if you tell it you never die, you never die. If you go to the other side of the consciousness and say, hey, I never die, because what is that? That is the truth. So it doesn't. So now, since you know the truth, how is it that the world can live in a lie then? You know you don't die, but you see people feeling like they're going to die, thinking they're going to die. Do you understand how the code works now? So how many more of those codes are running around? Like I said, the aging. Somebody looks at another person, they got older, you getting older, girl, I'm getting older. Oh shit, my dad got older, he died. And now that's all in the code. So you're not going to get somebody, they got one person who was supposed to have died here. Come on, man. Jesus. Right? They got one person who supposedly came. You got one example out of 8 billion people. I can't go with you on this one. Now, that's what I was saying, though. So religion, to get to my point here, so religion in many things are like drugs. What they're doing is that, so your subconscious mind, let's say you was on the battlefields of Normandy as a medic before you took a hot one in your chest and passed out and went subconscious and rolled back around again. And then in all of this experience, you continue to loop in these realities, and you carry this DNA of all these experiences. It starts to mess with you as a child. It starts to cause these different things happening in your life because you're still thinking about it. You're subconsciously thinking about it. And that's why anytime they go into the subconscious mind of a person, it's monstrous. There's so many things in there. So then here's the next big revelation to the whole thing. So this is what the womb is doing. The womb is literally like a nourishing center where it puts like a salve, a skin around you to kind of like block out that last projection and that last reality. See, I thought it was a cut, and it is a cut in many different ways, but it was deeper to explain it. And let me give the exact notes on this. It was deeper to explain it as being, give me a quick second here. Geez, I just skipped over my notes. Okay. So this layer of film, so I call it the layers of perception. This is the cut. So what this is that, so as all this is occurring, right? So you have virtually no recollection of what I'm explaining to you right now. You don't seem to have a recollection of how the subconscious mind is infinitely plunging you into worlds, okay? So I looked at the womb the other day because I got up early and I was about to go do some yoga. And then we were having like a cosmic womb conversation in the consciousness. And something said, hey, you got to be careful out there because the whole design of what you're in is to cut. And I kind of took that literal for a moment. I was like, yeah, because like I was really just one being, and this womb kind of split me into two things and kind of brought me out on the physical side. So I'm kind of like cut from my physical. And I was like, yeah, you need to work on that a little bit more, but you're headed in the right direction. And then I realized, I said, no, really visualize this. What is the womb exactly doing? Because there's some cutting mechanisms there from spirit to soul, but you can't even say that those are really separate because the field is there right now around you. So it's not really cutting. And I was like, yeah, it's not cutting. It's layering. It's creating, like, you see the nautilus shell, you know how it has these chambers? And every time it goes through a whole cycle, it creates the next chamber and next chamber. And then imagine that these chambers are basically your different lives, but they cut off, or what you think is they cut off. Okay? That's when the film is kind of closed. And then the new one starts. Now, what your subconscious mind is that if you poke through that film and you opened it up and all of the feelings and the ooze of the last existence starts coming through, and you're able to get through that, and then you poke through the other film again. Now, based on the next film, so based on my act, you're the original. So you would eventually poke through a film that would be you as the total you, like if you could keep taking it. And this is why I was saying that's why some of these substances, they do that for a minute. They're like dragons themselves. You start riding them through the films of perception. But the problem is that you still, most of the time, are attached still to your current consciousness. And it's trying to decode this 30,000 years ago you're about to go through, where everything about that space and that time is an old world compared to where you just came from. And so all the mind at a certain point just said, lights, just lights, because I don't have a language to speak to them in about this. And then, of course, the behavior, this stuff, right? Trying to figure out, why is this person acting like they have a demon in them or something? Like, what's wrong with them? And it's because when you have levels and levels of subconscious mind to pierce through, and you're trying to read that into the contrastual language that you're using right now, this is like trying to deal head on with chaos, but not having an understanding of what it is. This is why when you tap deep into yourself, it's easy to go back to 0 point, if you may, because you stop trying to process, and that happened to me, the pain, the problems. And you get to a point where you're like, you're not in control. Yes, of course, pain, problems, that's DNA. But where we're going is we're going through the other side of the film. Now, I'm telling you how we got here, because every time the womb comes through the conception, which is the mind, it builds a layer. And the layer that it builds is to kind of like put a window or a screen there, a foggy screen from last life. So it's not so much of that light seeps into this. Right? So you got all this stuff that happened in last life, DNA, all that, that's all lights. And it can't necessarily bleed completely through into your new reality that you've created, because you're on a drug, basically, a dragon. And then, because this is the healing process for the subconscious mind. How do you heal the subconscious mind? So you can have this person who's gone through an entire life of butchering people or animals or all sorts of wild stuff. So they got all sorts of things going on in their consciousness. So they'll come in the next life and then they'll go do Christianity. And then so what Christianity is for them is like a drug to start their subconscious mind to start recovering from the trauma and the tragedies. So it's going to try to narrow everything down, make things very basic. You're a baby. It's going to try to give you some kind of construct, some kind of code, some kind of new foundation. But of course, this is like a Band-Aid on a bullet hole because the drug is going to wear off. And that's what humanity is experiencing right now. That's what I said. That's called breaking the spell. The dragon is wearing off. And now people got a hell of a hangover and they're waking up to what this is. Now as I said before, when you're in, now this is just play right now still. Even what you see people going through, this ain't it. If you keep loading that in as, oh my goodness, this is crazy what they're doing with these laws and all that. All you're doing once again is you're adding more of their codes into your subconsciousness, right? That ain't crazy. Crazy is when you actually inhale over 5 milligrams of something that rips your soul out of your body. And when that's happened to you before, you're not looking at legislation and you're not looking at any of that stuff as if it's really serious. Do you get where I'm coming from here? It's like once you can't just come back into this controlled robotic construct acting like it's real and that it really even matters once you've already gone into that space. That's why when I be looking at folks, they say they've gone into that space before, then they over here whining and worried about all the stuff going on here. It's like, you weren't really in the space. Or you forgot about it like a dream. And that's what happens when you take drugs, meaning that this stuff will have an effect for a while, but if you don't really go through it, my awakening was through breath, taking yourself through it in waves, which is lung, which is another dragon, taking yourself through the process in the most vivid way possible. This is what we talked about that has to happen by November 30th, that you need to break through all the layers. And then the biggest one is this mind, right? The mind and its layers of perception has got you so enamored in this contrastual relationship that you've been dealing with. And meanwhile, this is going to go on infinitely, and you just are waiting for this death thing, which you expect to bring you something different, and it's not. What's going to be different is when, as you've done today, you crack the code. All right, I see how it all works now. So the womb creates a new spin. That's a new world or a new whirl. It's like a record. So now the womb creates a new spin, and now you got a new lease on life. You get a new ID, right? And now you can start over. To be able to start over would be to insist that there was an end, right? So you see how the codes work? To accept the code, you almost accept the poison. So I'm thinking I'm starting over. I'm getting a fresh, clean slate. Christianity and many religions teach that kind of way. You get this fresh, clean slate. There's no fresh, clean slate. That stuff is still back in the Nautilus. I think on one sci-fi film, the machine they were time traveling through was called the Nautilus, right? So you still got to get back in the Nautilus. And there's a lot of creeps in the cargo hangar and a lot of stuff that you haven't been able to master in the one symbol. So you can stop trying to process that from an ABC 1, 2, 3 kind of brain. All that keeps happening is you're going to come here infinitely. There's not going to be an end to this. That's what people need to understand. This is why they introduced the end. This idea of the end is more beneficial for everything in this construct of control, of course, than the idea of there not being an end. But I'll tell you, they fear one way more on many different levels. Not having an end for some people who have already gone crazy is ridiculous. It drives them more psycho. So that's why I said you should be grateful. You should be fortunate that you have this opportunity to come into your construct and into your awareness, and really through the experience that your parents allowed you to go through and let you see and let you experience, but not so that you fail this thing, not so that you just totally blow it after all this investment in you, but for you to finally get to the point where you're now able to exit right out the back, like it's through the mouth, on the behind the eyes, through the black dot, and walk out of this. This is what I was saying before about last week. Like, okay, time's up. We had fun, lots of knowledge, lots of wisdom. We got it already. But then, like, most of the questions that were asked were basically now what questions? Meaning most of the questions that I got, which I'll go through here in just a moment, from Tribe, filling out the metaphysical questionnaire form, was just about, so now what? Now that I can control my mind, what do I do now? So do you see how without this awareness that we're talking about right now, that's going to be infinite. Like, so what do I do now? And what you would get up to if time didn't end and you were stuck in such a limitation would just further your spiral into this. And that's why so many people have been here and so many people have not left this construct, have not left this realm of control. Because also the more it keeps getting tampered with, the more poisons and corrupt codes come into it without clarity. Like, very seldom does this realm reboot with clarity. So now in these times that we're in, since we've been exposed to so much already, it's really great to have a level of awareness where we can unlearn, we can unwind, we can go back through the doors of the Nautilus without fear. And it's a feeling. You slow down yourself. That's why they talk about people who can slow down their heart and how that brings them into a whole nother space and time. So you're slowing down. So instead of like that feverish, I got to get something, I need to learn something, I'm almost about to die, what's going to happen to me if I go into the light? And that feverish way of moving and trying to keep up with the speed of the mind and speed of light, You slow it down, and that's what people are experiencing in these perceptions when your third eye opens up, is that things just start slowing down to a point, and it gets what people would say is eerie. It gets a little too serious. It's like, and what all that is that you're coming into who you truly are, and you're leaving this fictitious system. Because now they've added so much. Like, how far are we outside? How many layers are we outside away from truth? How many layers are between us and truth? So that's going to be how much we're capable of truly feeling ourselves. The more layers in between who we are, the less we can really feel ourselves. And for any moment where something just starts opening that up, we start feeling ourselves so much, we become afraid of ourselves. Afraid of that level of power and connection. But you got to stick with it. It's just like anything else in life, that once you do it enough and you keep doing it, eventually you become trained at it. You teach yourself how to make it and to normalize it. So some final thoughts here. Wow, we really went through a lot here. Okay. I want you to write this down. It's not an illusion. You're an illusion. I'll say that once again. It's not an illusion. You're an illusion. What this does is this breaks multiple spells. Watch how this works. So notice how, once again, in this type of system where it's like chasing your tail, everyone goes out to the system to simply try to confirm where they're at. And they say, we're in an illusion. It's an illusion. And they're totally not taking responsibility. Nothing's out there. Stop it. It's a very powerful, like this is powerful. This is how you take powerful stuff, right? And you apply it to yourself. So it's so powerful that every time you hear one of these conscious speakers or whatever, they say, we're in an illusion. People rally behind that. Yes, it's all fake. And they start breaking it down, right? And it seems to bring them some type of joy to determine that this is an illusion, right? But it doesn't work like that, though. Nothing works like that. You're an illusion. I'm an illusion. So what I do then is I then admit that this one is made of light. As we talked about before, this is Ilu. The Ilu is light. Zion is the equivalent of a world or a nation or a city. That's why they talk about the Zion all the time. They want great Zion. This is the illusion. I am an illusion. I am made of light. This is not me. I'm something far more. So then when I'm able to take that responsibility and start looking at the world, it's an illusion. Like, that does not help me trying to determine how the world is an illusion. It does help me to see that I'm an illusion, because it gives me a great power. Because now that I know that I'm an illusion, I can disappear. And what disappearing really is that when you just wipe it, all of these judgments and all these systems of control, you just wipe it. I'm an illusion. I'm actually made out of light. But here's the thing. Light moves so fast, most people are not catching it. Literally, like light is moving so fast, people are not catching that. They're the illusions. So that they can make it into that next stage of realizing through that acceptance that you're something greater. So if there wasn't this ego intact that keeps trying to fight against this stuff, it's like, oh no, we all need to be babies. No. Watch with the poison hack. We all get old. Oh, no, I'm different. These are poison hacks. So what the one who is the master of the illusion is capable of doing is curing themselves from it by getting out of it. It's not about necessarily trying to figure out what kind of antidote you're going to put on to this to soothe this wound. You're not hurt. You're going through a dinonucleic process of something that really seemed like it was more designed as a training module by some very advanced beings who were definitely looking to evolve rapidly all the things that got into that code or construct. But to not realize at this stage, since we have so many systems of mimicry, what we're really in and how it really works, one could only be doing that because they're not ready to see themselves yet. And that ain't this camp. That's just not what we got going on. We're actually into ourselves. We're into seeing this process go on with self because we want clarity. So we're moving these films because it's like, all right, I'm ready to come out of this thing. Like, man, what's up with this tube? It just keep going, right? And then at some point, like I said, it's going to look like the sun, but the sun is a hole. And you're just going to come through it. And now you can see this from a linguistic level, because we've done this linguistically, but I was really talking to that subconscious mind. Like I was on the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind was hearing all this backwards. It was like, it was hearing that. And it was just like, okay, this is exactly what I need, because once I get in the dream world, and he's even almost asleep, she's almost asleep right now, I'm already applying this. Because if it sounds like something that you already knew, that's just the mind already kicking in and be like, okay, yeah, we got this. We know this already. But what I'm saying is that what the womb is doing in the end is, listen to this, the new spin, right? That's why the baby's sitting there in a spiral. It creates one more layer of film to, kind of block out that previous existence until we're ready to handle that. Thumbs in the mouth, my baby again. The layers of perception are created. Now all these IDs are loaded. All these codes are loaded. And then you remember. Think about this. Then you remember. Like, this is the final process of the womb. Now you remember. And in this remembering process, it's putting back all those members back on. It's putting back the head, the eyes, the womb is remembering you. So today, because we have a macro approach, you need to kind of know how to do both. You need to know how to remember, how to put yourself back together and insert yourself into a construct. And then you need to know how to, what people would say is the opposite of that. Forget. Right? You need to have you need to have your finger on that button that can. I keep seeing folks going through it. I feel for them, but there's nothing I can do. It's like I could just give notes. Here's my direct field log of my experience on Earth. Like, some folks got some real issues going on. Like, you just see them and it's like, wow, there they go again. They just, wow, how can I can't do anything. You start realizing that's what maturity is also, is that, remember, it's like, you can't do anything. They do it. When you put yourself into that level of awareness, then you tap into what you should be doing, and that helps everything around you, not just them. They get some too if they're still around. Let me answer some of these questions really quick here, and I'm going to breeze through these, and we're going to go ahead and keep going forward. It's 8:30, so at least on this side. So looks like we're making good time. So here it is. So the first question here, and I'm actually answer many of these questions in tandem, because there were many questions that related to the same thing, which is great, because that means that we're actually accomplishing a really strong version of the synchronicity together. So this question is, how do we as beings who are spiritually sovereign stay anonymous in this space if we aren't able to get out of things like even government housing? Okay. This was, I believe, a number one asking this question. There was another question similar to this from another number one. It says, basically, my question is around sovereignty, specifically being an actual recognized sovereign by law. And they wanted to get into this topic a bit more. Didn't feel like it was really being covered inside of sovereignty mentorship as much. Wanted to understand kind of what's going on with that, okay, that aspect of sovereignty, all right? So I'm going to answer these two questions together, because obviously what was also mentioned in that, they were aware that first step is for sure spiritual sovereignty. So that is for sure the way we go with this. Now, with that being said, and this is a question directly about sovereignty and, what's up with the achievements of sovereignty and where should we move next? Now that we've become spiritually sovereign, we're really able to now accept ourselves as the gods. You know, forgive or take. The reason why prayers don't get answered is because you're not using your power. Things are not, you got babies dying and all that because you haven't intervened yet. So the gods are the people. So with that spiritual sovereignty and not making it something else's fault or responsibility to get you to the next stage or to the next level, and you take all that back inside of you as the ancestors designed you to do. Now, what about the physical sovereignty on the planet? Like laws, legalities, these kind of things. So obviously this has been something that I've researched, and I've been, and many around me researched this topic, just being in the conscious community, many pioneers of this. As I said before, Santos used to even go in on this, obviously. Yusuf El goes in on this. A few Moorish brothers go in on this. So there's a lot of knowledge out there about sovereign law, okay? Now, what's interesting is that just like I was telling you earlier, remember I was telling you that when the cycles change, the old laws and codes and stuff don't even work anymore? This is another great example. Right now, we have people going to these law books trying to figure this stuff out. But we're already in the wild, wild west. Meaning that the people that are functioning on this planet right now as sovereigns don't ask what they can and cannot do. They don't try to go find different instruments and papers and trust and all that. They don't even, that's the system that they laugh at. So you can see there's levels to this, right? So, because then you got another group like the corporations, and they always take advantage of these trusts and all that kind of stuff and what it can do. So I would assume that that's the one that we're referring to. So when I studied that structure, what it basically says is this. Every time you come into the public domain and make a transaction, you need to use that public instrument. They don't do that. They don't use those instruments. So it means that they got friends in their network that, look, I'm going to sell you. You want the castle in Versailles? I'll take 500 pounds of gold for it. Bet. There's no, okay, I'm going to send it to you via Bank of America, or I'm going to swipe this on the credit card, or we're going to enter this into the deeds and the lawyer and the county and all. There's none of that. And that's what allows them to operate privately. And because they're operating privately, they're basically what you would say is sovereigns. They do what they want to do. So I want to make this very clear that when I started digging deep into this, I found that there was a few levels. Now, obviously, you want to make a climb, trying to just go right to the end point. It's not feasible. So the first part is one, realizing that for this to ultimately work, you need to then begin to transact in a private currency. This is why I said before that still cryptocurrency, still with all of its flaws, is introducing one core concept that did not exist within the previous transactional cycle, which was that there are coins that there's no affiliation. They're basically decentralized. There's no central bank to that coin. And what that creates is it creates a form of anonymity, because if you agree to take this coin and I agree to give it to you and we make a transaction, no one knows about that transaction. It gets lost in the sea of things. Unlike if we make a real transaction on the physical plane, even as low as $5,000 to $9,000, and I'm buying something from you, most of the time somebody is going to report that. Because that's got to come out of somebody's bank account, and then they're going to need to explain where that 9,000 went and why it went to this person, or why you pulled it out as far as money. So somebody's got to explain it, and that's what pulls it back into the system. So what is ultimately still a work in progress for the conscious community is basically being able to create our own private system of commerce. That means that at least enough of us would need to be producing the essentials for another one of us to be able to find that essential as valuable and to be able to transact it back with the same amount of currency that they've earned from the same nucleus. Now, again, it's 2020. So doing this on a farm is totally different than doing this in a digital sphere. We could do this on a farm with different animals and different crops and different foods and things that we find vital to our life. But in the actual matrix structure, or the artificial matrix with the digital, Now we have to basically figure out what is the digital equivalent of that. That's also possible, and that's also called a DApp. A DApp is a decentralized application. So right now, we're seeing the highest adoption of decentralized applications in the world that we've ever seen in history. Because one, it was not even something that was put into the public and that was ever offered. And two, it wasn't something that other people could even get involved in. So now we see decentralized applications being built. So within a short period of time, you should be able to get the things that mean the most to your life in some type of, to your life and survival in some kind of private form of transaction. When this happens, this allows you then to step away from the table, which would normally put you back into the field of finances and then losing your rights because now you're using instruments that make you designated as a citizen, such as a social security number, such as even fiat currency. So to use their instruments, you must abide by their rules. And that means that you need to report it. Then it moves from a private to a public, which is a breach of sovereignty. Sovereignty, the biggest word behind that is privacy. It's not something that you should be asking for. It's something that you have as a right? But obviously that's not the case. So you're transacting in their system. Nothing is private, but then you have to transact in their system in order to fulfill the basic things that you need to get every day, like internet. So do you see how they built their structure is their internet may come right from Starlink with Elon. They know Elon. That's not in nobody's name. You see what I mean? So it's not, they've already built the structure. And so where we're at is we're building that structure. And, that's what I'm saying with so many different, just the relentless attacks on the conscious community and the consciousness overall. It has at times us focusing on things that are not as imperative to how we can really change our future. And, that's just what I saw. Like, I really saw people focusing more on, I don't know, even chanting and stuff like that. And that's great. You spend 3 hours chanting, but, the kids are still like in the street with no curriculum. And you know what I mean? So it was just like the priorities were off. Like, I saw a lot of these pacifist movements and those kind of things were still alive today within things like the New Age movement and community that was just totally disarming people. And because they had that same opiate of the masses, they felt like it couldn't happen to them. Meaning that, sometimes, you could be so high and holy with your cross. You could be like, well, nothing can ever destroy us or kill us or take us away. And you never realize that it's already doing that. Some of this stuff is extremely poisonous to a person's growth if they can't get off the drug. All of us do need from time to time. Like, I know some folks that they're better off Christians right now than what they was doing before. This is clearly an upgrade. But if they can't get off of it, though, then but that's how everything is. That's why I always say, man, you got to keep this thing moving because it's always moving. And then you need that ejector seat to where you can just come into the space where you're unmovable, right? So this next question was about what's next in so many words. And that's why I explained today, this was it. This is all the wires, all the chips, a macro approach. This should give you a clear vision of what is next so you can insert yourself into it versus that physical one that never seems to end, the what's next, where there's another new book and there's another new, right? So now you have both doors to be able to walk through. There's also a question here about where are the tribe vibes. I admit that last week's tribe vibes, it kind of got into a little situation where it hadn't rendered and it was a big file. So I finally got it re-rendered. So it'll be up this week. It's just called Heal Thyself. They asked about the last one before that. And the last one before that is actually in Tribe Vibes or actually in the university also. But the easiest way to find these is to simply go to the conversations area in Asana and then check the messages there, because then every time one is posted, you'll see it. And I always leave the link directly to it. So you'll be able to catch all the tribe vibes as they're posted from the links that are inside the conversation area in Asana. And I will admit that this week, I'll probably roll both of these out at the same time. So it'll be a double feature for you.
So you can binge watch and be geeked up over there, try to figure out where the portal is until you see it in yourself, right? So here it is. The next question is, yeah, that was actually all of the questions. Let me see. There was, and next week also, I wanted to mention that, okay, so the onboarding process, wow, that was wild. So if you notice now, well, you probably wouldn't because you probably are already a member of Secret Energy, so there would be no reason for you to sign up again. But if you go through the sign up process, you'll see that the sign up process has completely changed inside of Secret Energy to now allow it to segue in this opening of not only Eneology, but mainly soul coaching. We've given a deadline. The third week of December, it has to be done. We have to be in soul coaching beta, and we're actually on target. Everything is everything. So we had to change the whole process because I'm definitely not trying to design something that's working from Excel sheets. So it's so smooth. Person comes in and they go through the sign up process. They choose right now if they want to go in free or if they want to go in the 79. And then we're going to be opening up the what we call Ambassador Pro or Sovereignty Mentorship Pro. We're going to be opening that up when we get our soul coaches integrated into the system. We have a first round of soul coaches, which are our senior soul coaches. And I decided that it would be much more easier to put the senior soul coaches in, let them debug the process in the system that we've already designed. And then that way, when we're bringing in new soul coaches, which we should be doing by January, late January, they've already are basically in position to mentor those new coaches that are coming in. This is the best thing going. The reality is that every single problem that is occurring right now, the solution is actually built into this. And it's great that it all is happening right now. I feel like more than ever because there's more of an actionable side to this tribe right now because we've been in our subconscious, in our deep depths, in our wombs for quite a bit of time, working on that cleansing and that healing. And then now, unapologetically, it's time for the world to feel us. And that actually times itself properly to when I'm personally like, man, I always explain to everybody, I'm really more like a Willy Wonka. Like there's some stuff that I'm working on. Like I feel like I found something with a 7.83 hertz stable. Like I'll know in January, but this will basically be able to bring ground directly into your room under your bed. And this will allow you, especially for people who are disconnected from the ground. Like I didn't even realize just to the other day that I'm not actually grounded even where I'm at because our house on stilts. Because in the jungle, man, you put your stuff on the ground, man, everybody's going to be in the house. I mean, it's just plausible for you to walk in the bathroom and something's just in the corner, like, and you're like, yo, is that something? You know, you turn on the corner, like the light series in the jungle is wild. Like you don't even think stuff is out here. It's that crazy. And, you know, play with it if you want to is what I always say. So every day, like I really practice. I turn my light on and I look around before I go to the other house. But what I'm getting at is that there's some adjustments being made. That kind of just cracked me up, man. I kind of lost my train of thought for a minute. But so I guess, you know, to bring it in, we are making exemplary progress. And we're also doing something so intrinsic with each of us where I feel like there's a lot of growth going on with inside a tribe and we have a constant. And that is the most important thing. Because when others are coming in, because in a minute there's going to be no place to go. It's good that we started on this early because it's going to be something that a lot of beings actually need. And when they start coming in, though, it's very important of why this was named Ambassador Training. Remember when I'm coming up with these titles and stuff, they just get dialed in just like the co-creation. And so this was called Ambassador Training for the last 4 years, I believe it's been now. And everyone here that has done their tutelage is indeed an ambassador of this awareness and this co-creative womb that we're all sharing together. And because of that, actually, that's what I was saying. It kind of puts me into a position of where I can actually go and do things that I also feel will be equally as instrumental at making sure that we remain prominent, that we remain on top. Like I'm not taking second base to anybody. Like I don't care if they got Apple and, you know, Intel and all this kind of stuff. I've seen so much beyond all this stuff. It doesn't make it like it's a competitor, but there still becomes just the overall aspects of doing the fun. I don't call it work anymore, but just going through the process. That's also what I wanted to let everybody here know is that you got to do the work. Like that's what I was saying by somebody else can't really change you. The gyms could really be here, but they could have almost no value to you if you're not willing to apply them to yourself.
Also, this is very entertaining. I love it, but there's a very serious aspect to this. I try to do my best at, not, thunder all the time. But again, this is really about an infinite existence. That's what I feel like is why they didn't want to introduce that into this mainframe about how we were really infinite, because it would scare the crap out of people. You think people are scared of the end, but they're scared of the endless. They're way more, fear, they're way more scared of the endless. They need that cutoff and that restart. And I'm not saying they won't always get it. You need to realize also that your job is not necessarily to come here and end the death. You know what I mean? Like when you see how powerful all this stuff is, you'd be like, let me sit back and get a little bit more ancestrally intelligent before I start trying to play around with the framework. This whole thing with compartmentalizing existences through the shields of the womb, ingenious, especially when you're dealing with an unlimited construct called a mind. But also, there must be new pioneers. Like you must be able to go into other vistas. Nobody's speaking English. Nothing's on Euclidean. So it's a totally refreshing experience in existence that you're not even coming in as a child. There's no idea of what a child even is. And this is what I feel like, this is where we really are at with this right now. And what we're trying to do sometimes is narrow that into moments and experiences and say, well, that's what I really want. I just want to be happy. I just want to buy my own land. I just want to, but it's like, once you get to that, you're still going to be dealing with this and all what's going on here. So it's like, let's just solve this right now. So that's what this transmission was about today. There is actually one more question here. Give me 1 second. I will ask also those who are sending WealthyBot questions to really jump into the WealthyBot chat, because all the questions are being answered there. I put in a week because I saw a lot of questions, and I put in a week of making sure that we got all of the questions answered into the help docs. What we also did was we created a chart. Me and Elena, we've been knocking it out. We created a chart that is a visual. This is the start to the end process, because we know that it's complicated. So I really would like questions that are not metaphysical to really not be put into the metaphysical questionnaire form, just so that it helps me to be able to get through this. And of course, we've built spaces for you to, and things for you to be able to get all the knowledge that you need. So that's what we have. So let's close this space. Well, actually, never mind. There's no such thing as closing anything, because there's nothing that can be closed. You got to catch yourself. That'll say move at the speed of light and faster. Change now. Unapologetically. If you say, I made a mistake, just keep rolling through it. Like, go on to the next thing. Like, this is the only thing that's going to get you there. If you needed someone to tell you this, that's what I'm here for, just for this time. Look. You're done. You're healed already. You got something so big and so expansive, you're already sitting right inside of it. You need to turn everything back within again and actually see yourself as you truly are. See how the subconscious mind cooks up these experiences. Start walking through the doors of perceptions of yourself. See the reflections, meaning when you start seeing yourself change, then be like, I'm changing. Like when you, because what I was saying is the last thought that I want you to, or the last thing that I want you to realize here is that, so every time you jump into it with somebody, be careful of what you're doing. It's not just that you're going to win that argument. It's not just that you can hold that vibration and energy, but you just need to tell them what. It's just that you're in a loop. And they're drawing you back into that loop. That's the final thing I want you to realize here, is that, remember, the reason why all this works is because other people get it going on that are not even doing this. They're not trying to fix the problem. They don't know what the problem is. They're so far. Think about the stuff that we were talking about today, right? And then imagine the average person. Even you may have struggled with a bit of this today and need to actually rewind this and play it back again, right? So now look at the average person. Now what you see is just a direct portal of dragging you right back into the whole thing again. So you choose. This should be your mantra. When you start seeing it pop off, you should start laughing like, oh my goodness, they really tried to draw me into that. They are going to be here forever. This is ridiculous. Like, but I'm not. So I'm not going to jump in. Just make sure that you're aware of this, because every time you jump in, this is like you're not letting the wound heal, if you may. You're not actually allowing, it's a cumulative effect. Power is a cumulative effect. You're filling up something. It's like water being dumped into a vessel. So if every time, and now remember also, we talked about this a long time ago so the more power you start building up, they be trying to milk you for this power. It's almost like they can smell it on you. Like this stuff you cannot see physically with your eyes, but people can feel it and you can feel it. So once you start charging up, and this is another thing to work on before the 30th. When you're avoiding these conflicts and confrontations, like Napoleon Hill says, he never met any successful person that got into petty confrontations. Okay? That's in The Secrets to Success. So that means that, I even find myself doing this sometimes when I leave for a message and it's like, okay, my guy, all right, here we go. And I'm giving them a good 150. They only gives a character limit here. So it's like 150. So I'm deleting this stuff. And then I'll catch myself. Like, my guy, what is to become of this? What are you doing? Please put this thing down. And come on now. That's how you got to be on yourself. Every time they're trying to drag you in, I'm laughing about this. I'm laughing, it's bringing me to tears because, it's same thing, make you laugh, make you cry, right? So it's real talk. Right now, people are always getting triggered. And this is like, they throw the bait out there and they start reeling it in and here you go. You're going at this. This is not even a worm. It's a what do they call that? What did the fishermen call the thing that's not even real, right? It's just like the test and then anyway, I know my fisherman gonna say something in the chat here in a moment, but basically the lure, the fake lure that's just plastic with all the hooks in it with all the shiny stuff, you're not even getting the worm. You're not even getting the chum. They're not even chumming the water for you right now. They just bringing one of them cheap ass Kmart $3 lures, tackle. Yeah, so I said a tackle with the bob, with the cheap 20-cent bob on the top. And here you come, big fish. And then all your power, all your energy, everything. We are trying to get one turn happening here, one turn of the Nautilus to completely dissolve this whole thing about the unclarity of the past. So what I'm telling you is that, yes, many are going to have to go through the hard knock life shadow world of getting themselves together. But I'm also presenting that there is this other way where you can just master one cycle and then apply that symbol to all your cycles to open all your doors. So basically what you do is in this experience, you distill the experience to a key. And then once you have that key, it's going to open up all those wombs. And when you walk into them, instead of you feeling the abuse and the fear and all the kind of things that were associated with that creation, keep walking. Keep walking through, because all of these are really the same, even though you're going to sometimes see them as different. And that's what I was saying before about that whole different code. The different code is dangerous. Now imagine how much I had to deal with a different code. If you go to Google right now and you Google Bomar gene, you'll find out it's the gene that makes people unique. This is what they call the Bomar gene, is the gene that makes people unique. In addition, you see this ambrosia, right? Ambro is an anagram for Bomar. Okay, so I'm going to tell you, I've been seen to be coming in and out of this shit for infinity. So I'm not saying that, hey, I think this is what's going on. Nah, I know this is what's going on. And for once in life, I'm being boisterous about it and insisting that others, including myself, get out of this pattern. Because we've learned what we need to learn. We've healed already of what needed to be healed. We've grown up, and now it's time to shed these concepts of death. So birth must go. See, some people were upset. I felt it when I said that you weren't a baby and you needed to be a baby. They loved a baby. So they're like, well, no, the baby's the baby. What I'm saying is if you accept the beginning, you must accept the end. To accept the end is to accept the beginning. So you can't accept the baby. The consciousness and the concepts that you're going to keep coming into stuff vulnerable and not knowing what's going on, that code has got to be obsolete. But you can see how it works on somebody. Like, man, when you're talking about a manslaughterer, it's good to put him in a baby form again. This is what we were talking about the Titans and how the Titans got shrunk down. Like, all of that power equals a lot of destruction if you don't have that power under control. Or actually, in control. In control versus under control, right? So the judge is under control and tries to put everything else under it with that control versus in control is I'm the Lord of my own life. I'm the master of my own sovereignty. Somebody else coming talking that crazy stuff. Why am I going to spend juice and jazz on them? Like, what is at the highest levels, if somebody is really, really getting on your nerves, the greatest thing that you could ever do to show them that they never won was to ignore them to where it never even ticks. It never even ticks. That's how you'll know when it doesn't even tick. You know, sometimes you may have this under control. You wasn't going to do nothing anyway, but you'll be burning up inside. You still haven't mastered it yet. So somebody say, hey, what am I going to do? Work on that. If you still feel a reflection where somebody does something, you feel like you need to jump in and reload all the codes again, just fix that. And I'm sure you'll be great. When the whole thing, the fake death thing happens, that fast shift into doing something that is just immediately exhausting the energy or immediately bringing you into a space that does not feel comfortable for you. Why would I go in a space that didn't feel comfortable for me? Right? So this is how do we master this through the ways of seeing it clearly. If I am willing to make myself upset, that means I'm willing to send myself back into a world of abuse. And I'm willing to send myself back into a world where nothing's ever going to happen for me, really, or I'm never going to reach the top, or I'm always going to be begging, or there's always going to be an issue, or there's always going to be a problem. Do you get where I'm coming from? So if I'm willing to let somebody else right now at this stage in time say something to me that lets me turn my frequency into something that does not make me thrive and feel comfortable with who I am, then I am willing at the end of my life to come back into punishment, to despair, to fear, dishonesty, possession. I'm willing to come into all of that because that's when it happens. And that's it. So you got an easy benchmarker. You got something that's quantifiable, as they call it. Because some of this knowledge, you'd be like, man, I mean, so where are we going to find it? On the magic carpet? This is something that you can test yourself with at every single moment. Am I tripping? Am I letting them get into me? Now, there was a final question, in fact. So this question was, it was a bit more into the direction of, so when other people are around me, because I got to live with them, or it's like my significant other or whatever, and they're doing it. How do I deal with that? How do I deal with it? Okay. Are they going to hit you? Like when they're going into their thing, because here's the thing, it's going to take you time to do what you need to do anyway with yourself. When you're building and you're creating something, it's a tenure. So generally 10 years, right? So sometimes they're just placeholders. It's like, I'm going to chill with you. But your ass got 5 more years because once I level up. So meaning that sometimes it's explainable that as long as you're not jumping into it and they're not hitting you because you're not saying anything to them and you're not jumping into this argumentative train, because after a while they go see the boss is what's going to happen. It's like after you keep not diving in, they're going to feel the divine masculine, divine feminine authority starting to come off of you. But if every time they're trying to test the metal and it's like you're jumping into it with them, then that ain't it. But I'm telling you, if you just start like numbing out on them real quick, like, ooh, I just don't have no time. And just start talking crazy and you just start walking off. This is only going to lead to one or two things. Either they're going to hit you, which you need to get out anyway, or they just go to this point where they start realizing like, yo, okay, I guess he's really serious about being different. Because see, that's the whole thing with people, right? Like they think you're the same. They think that you're always going to be the same like them. That's that point-to-point system that I was telling you about that keeps confirming this normality. They think every time they bump into you, they're bumping into the same person. I be laughing at people because they be thrown off when I come around sometimes. They be like, is there anything new? I'm like, man, there was something new 10 minutes ago for me. Like, absolutely, there's something always changing and going on. But then I can visit some people and find that they are still the same. And hey, that's great, but that's just not how I like the thing. I don't serve my life up that way. So I'm just explaining to you very simply. You can test yourself here from the next to November 30th about how well you're able to hold your frequency stable. That's a sovereign. And then what will happen is as you're leveling up, because this is doing something behind the scenes, the environment can't, at a certain frequency, it can't keep handling this. So either the person goes into some level of transformation themselves based on the contact that they have with you, or the environment starts not being able to hold the frequency and it morphs. That's how we change things. So you see those who have power, they sit and they focus on that power. They ain't sitting there running all around. I told you, man. I told you. What you do? I'll grab the firmament. And oh, you'll make me do something. You're gonna make me grab. You know how much power I have? Do you know who you talk out? I'll hurl immediate. Okay. All right. You think I'm a joke. I notice how the arguments are wild, right? Because it's just like a back and forth of who can say the worst thing. Or like when you try to scare people, it's like a gorilla. You're just like, you know what I mean? It's like, yo, I'm really the craziest here. No, I'm the crazy. Yo, I'm about to break your shit. You see what I mean? So this is old school, right? Like we know this, we don't do this anymore, right? We don't do this anymore, right? So now you're realizing today why this is gonna be a different kind of subconscious venture for you if you keep, and the testing fields are here now. I don't know, I'll just water it up, man. It's just hilarious. But it's so serious, like, because if it doesn't get a chance to charge, like, let's not play with it in this respect, that if you keep opening up the top like your steam and it's just not getting the opportunity to build, you can't really get to that breakthrough. And while you may think it's like after you're done, you're like, baby, we good? Yeah, I'm good, baby. I'm sorry. And this is like the 300th time. You know what I mean? This kind of behavior, this is the loop, and you should be concerned. So, because when you sit still for a moment, you feel this eerie feeling. Like I say, like, whoa, wait a minute. Something was weird. I'll keep doing this. You see what I mean? So you can slow it down for a minute. That's how you slow down time and space. And you realize, yo, this is just not another moment. This is something that keeps happening to keep me out of something bigger. So wholeness and balanced vibrations. It's always an incredible time to come and connect with Tribe. Despite whether you see me or not, know that there is massive stuff happening on this end. We're gearing up. We already know what we all need to be doing. I'm here to empower you. I'm just going to keep doing what I do because the vision is almost complete. We're closing the circle. And what this allows is everyone to come forth and flourish with what they've learned, and then also the uniqueness that they placed in it. One last thing is that I suggest that if you do have a secret energy account, actually, I will have to suggest this be done on Monday because a developer got this earlier this week and he just finished the onboarding.
this is in relation to the keywords. Like I'll publish this in the chat. We're going to do this next week because starting on Monday. One is we're going to let our senior soul coaches start coming in and actually giving their advice on the questions that we're receiving. And two, we're going to publish this list of what we would say are keywords or skills in many ways. And we want to encourage everyone to choose the 3 skills that they know that I got this. And then actually to change the keywords in your profiles to that. Because basically this system that we're designing is predominantly going to use that to pair people with each other and to also pair coaches with co-creators that are looking for someone specifically that works with specific things. So generally, if you find interest in something, it means you already know something about it. Some may say they like etymology, and that means because, you've probably read a lot of etymology books already. So this means generally you already have some experience in that. And we're saying for soul coaches or those who want to soul coach specifically, you need to begin to change your profile to those interests so that we can already start working on the back end in the system to allow the algorithm to do things properly. So I see somebody say, you're an illusion. I even got offended for a moment. Look, you're an illusion. Whoa, wait. Oh, yeah, I am. I am an illusion. You're right. Just catching it. You got to be there. Got to be there to catch it. So that's what it is, tribe. I'm going to go ahead and unmute the lines now. And I trust in that everyone was able to get some clarity on what we talked about today. Wholeness.
Wholeness.
Your wholeness family.
Wholeness.
Powerful.